Okay, today we're speaking with guitarist Bart Walsh, and of course, Bart, as I was telling you, the reason I want to interview you today is for a project I'm doing called Under Influence, and you, of course, got your start on the Los Angeles area, playing in the Van Halen tribute band, the Atomic Punks. Now, I wanted to ask you, Atomic Punks are, of course, one of the longest running tribute bands. So, could you share with us about how you and the other guys in the band first put the Atomic Punks together, and why you guys kind of decided to, put a tribute band together rather than doing like an original project?
Well, sure. I didn't actually get my start in Atomic Punks.
Okay.
The Atomic Punks was a 100% complete fluke and accident. I was actually in a signed act called Lantia, and we were on a label in Japan called Pony Canyon. It's a fairly large one. Ingve Malmsteen and a few other notable artists were on it as well. And so we had a record out, and this is probably, I guess, 92, 93, somewhere in that area, and they wanted us to come over and tour, and we had a singer that, shall I say, was unable to attend performances and rehearsals for his own reasons.
Wow.
and so we did some shows where he just didn't show up. And so finally we were forced to look for another singer. And some of the guys in a band called Race for X, they were friends of mine, and they told me about this guy to go check out that they had looked at before John Corabi had gotten into the band for the spring, a guy named Ralph Sames. So I went down to where Ralph was playing, and talked to him a bit, and I said, hey, this is what we got going on. He was in 7% Solution at the time. That band was kind of coming to its close. And so I said, come down and, check out the band and stuff. And he said, cool, whatever. So we just, at that point, decided just to jam on some covers because we were not really sure what direction we were going to go with and what we were going to do with the band. So Ralph came down, jammed on some covers, and I go, hey, you need Van Halen. And I was taping this whole thing. And his eyes got big, and we started jamming on some, because the drummer and I had played together since we were 18 years old, and we had toured together in the South and played college bands and done EPs and a lot of original stuff beforehand, so and cover stuff. So we knew a lot of these Van Halen songs from our youth, and so we started jamming on it. I took home, I listened to it, and I was like, holy shit, this guy sounded just like David Lee Roth. You might have to beep out that last thing.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
And I was like really kind of astounded and taken aback by it. So we had a show at a club called FM Station in North Hollywood for our original band, and I was just like, you know what? Let's just go have some fun. Why don't we do a Van Halen tribute? So I went to the drummer, who was kind of our band. And I said, hey, this guy sounds just like Dave. I said, why don't we just do a tribute show, and we'll call it the Atomic Punks. I just looked at the name and got the name, and I came up with off of the back of the record. I happened to speak last name. So we said, sure, why not? And so from there, we did the show, and I guess we played probably 15 or 16 songs, but we were only going to do it one time. I mean, the last thing that we wanted to do was to play covers. I mean, that was, again, everything we stood for. We did not want to do this at all. I just wanted to be really clear about that, because it wasn't something we set out to do. And we started playing, and people flipped out. And the guy's like, hey, come back next week. We'll pay you more money. And word spread like wildfire. And so at that point, I was like, I've really got to learn these songs correctly. I mean, I kind of knew them from my childhood and stuff, but, I really had to dig in deep. So I did. So I really started getting into the songs and sounds. And Ralph was just, dead on natural. And we had, some other stellar musicians in the band, so it was a pretty easy thing to put together. I mean, learning the guitar parts was probably the most difficult of the whole thing. We didn't really rehearse that much. We would just learn the songs and maybe rehearse once or twice, and after we got a setup, we would blow through stuff and sound check. And word spread, and all of a sudden, the band's one of the biggest club draws on the West Coast, and it was purely accidental. And I guess one of the things that really did drive it is we did have a passion. We were all super fans.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like it was a job or a whole lot of work. I mean, it was a labor of love. And we got
kind of interesting thing to me, again, like I was saying, the Atomic Punks, you guys were one of the first, really first tribute bands out here in the LA area, and you kind of set the standard for everything that came after. Are you surprised at how huge the tribute scene has grown today?
Yeah, I mean, I don't guess I'm surprised as much because, of course, I did it and it was pretty successful. But people, it's entertainment. Everybody's got to, get off of this thing about, original versus tribute versus this versus that. It's all entertainment. All we are entertainers. We're not heads of state or politicians. You know what I mean? It's like everybody needs to lighten up, and if everybody has fun, that's just the whole point of the thing. Because we're just out there, just trying to have fun and make a living, and that's why we're musicians in the first place. Really, it's because we love what we do, and so no, I'm not surprised. I mean, and it works for the audience too because they get a chance, at some point in the week or weekend to see that kind of music they couldn't necessarily see the real artist, and some of the bands don't even exist anymore. So I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but yeah, it has became quite the trend.
And I think what's cool about talking to a guy like you is, like, again, you're one of the pioneers, and it's kind of interesting to hear you say how we didn't even this project of Atomic Punks just kind of accidentally fell together. Not something we set out to do. Just kind of took off now. And I think other cool thing about the Atomic Punks is that at the time when you guys first were getting started, of course, the original Van Halen was no longer together. So you guys were kind of giving the audience, a taste of, classic Van Halen that they hadn't had in a long time, at that point.
Yeah, I don't think the original Van Halen is still together. They're missing a bass player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that was in the Santa era, and but it became very popular, and local musicians, when Billy Sheehan would sit in, or Dave Ross would come down, and watch us to celebrities and stuff like that. So it became kind of this LA Cool Hang kind of thing too. So it was a lot of fun.
And so when you guys first started, putting the Atomic Punks together, how did you go about picking the set list? I mean, was it necessarily? I imagine you had to play, mostly a lot of the hits, but did you ever throw in any songs that that weren't as well known?
Oh yeah, we did some deep cuts like Simple Rhyme and Light Up the Sky. And, I mean, we were all such huge fans that we loved playing any of that stuff. And I think that we did all of the first record and pretty much all of the second record except for maybe one or two songs. And I think I was more than pretty much all of it except for maybe in Total or something like that.
An interesting thing to me about, again, talking a little bit about the Atomic Punks is, Ralph is no longer with them, but, for a brief time, he's a member of LA Guns, and he's now fronting Steel Panther, and he's actually, been very successful, more successful doing the tribute scene than, doing anything original. And I think that, again, that, speaks about his talent, and, and that says a whole lot right there.
Ralph's unbelievable. Ralph's one of the best singers by far that I've ever worked with, and he's just he's super talented. He's got a great stage presence, and Steel Panther's funny as hell. So
yeah.
I'm a fan.
And of course, you eventually left the Atomic Punks because you got the offer, of course, to join David Lee Roth's solo band. You want to talk about a little bit about how that opportunity came about? I mean, was it a matter of him coming down and seeing the show, or how did that come about?
Well, yeah, again, it's not something I planned. It was, he had seen the band. We used to play this strip bar out in Pasadena called Pleasures, and that was pretty close to his house. And so Michael came out and said, with Michael Anthony one time, and Dave would be in the audience, and et cetera, et cetera. So what ended up happening, they first contacted me and Ralph, I believe, to write for the 98 DLR band record. And we submitted some things. They didn't make it. And, I'd seen where he had, I saw where he was playing Bally's Las Vegas. I mean, this is kind of weird. He needs to be doing something different than that. And so, I sent a note along with a text, hey, if you decide to do rock again, give me a call. So like 3 years later, I'm sitting in my kitchen in the phone rings, and it's David Lee Roth, and I thought it was Ralph at first. I'm like, because Ralph could really do the voice and stuff. But then he's like, hey kid, I saw you tag, you on tour, and I'm like, cool. So I never auditioned. We went into rehearsals, and a month after that, we were co-headlining Sweden Rock Festival. So it was, he had seen the tape of the band and stuff like that, so he had complete confidence in us, and it was Ray Luzier and Todd Jensen, and we just kind of went in and shed it, and off we went.
And so you were, of course, part of his touring band, but did you ever put anything down on tape or any unreleased songs that you played?
Yeah, tons of stuff. I mean, we did this thing called the Backyard Barbecue video, and I don't know, there's so many covers on that. And we were going to do an original record, and that kind of got preempted by this video. And but I spent I don't know, probably 3 months at A&M recording everything from Rolling Stones songs to Electric Light Orchestra to Jerry Rafferty. I mean, it was a pretty diverse collection of tunes.
And so I got to ask you, what was it like going from playing clubs up and down the Hollywood Strip to actually playing Van Halen covers, actually joining the the Van Halen singer's solo band? That must have been kind of mind blowing.
And the thing was, we were playing to some really big crowds over in Europe. I mean, it was kind of in the dark ages of the rock, kind of the late 90s. But rock was still big in Europe, so we did well over there and did some, festivals, and we had tours over here with Bad Company and a few other artists, and it was great. I really loved that whole experience.
And did you play with Dave when he did the tour with Sammy Hagar?
No, I left right before that, and then that's when I moved to Nashville. I'd lived in LA for about 18 years, and decided I needed a change, so I came here.
And so Dave seems like he's a really like he's a real character. That's a guy that's always on. What's he like? To get to know personally. I mean, again, going from a guy that was kind of probably somebody you looked up to growing up to actually getting to know the guy personally.
First of all, Dave, that's not an act at all. Let me tell you, he's on 24/7, and he's obviously a very unique individual, and he's always keeping us cracked up, and he's very, very intelligent. That's another thing people don't know. He's incredibly well read, and he's a voracious appetite for music. I mean, he's got more probably musical knowledge than any person in music as far as rock and roll. I mean, he listens to everything from disco to big band to old blues to classical, and so I think a lot of that probably did filter into Van Halen because of him, and that's kind of what made those records so great. And he's always a student of something. I mean, he's either studying Portuguese, or I was getting guitar lessons, or so he's a Renaissance man, definitely.
Yeah, I know he's even now living in Japan, and he's learned how to speak Japanese, and just watching some of the videos he has up on his site, he's a very intelligent guy, like you're saying. He does these little videos called the Dave Lee Roth Show, and he did one that's pretty good because talked a little bit about how of the influence of cigarettes and advertising and alcohol, and it really made me think for a while. And I thought, wow, this guy, people they think he doesn't know what he's talking about, but he's really quite intelligent.
Oh yeah, and it's a wide range of interest too, But the main thing I learned, play with him is how not to get kicked in the head while you're on stage.
Yeah.
That's really important.
And so, of all the places you got to tour when you were, playing with him, where's your favorite place to play? As far as did you have a favorite country or place that you really enjoyed visiting?
I gotta tell you, after playing all over the place, there's nothing like the United States. you know, in the Midwest and in parts of the South. I mean, the Midwest and Texas, you know, they love rock and roll. And European audiences are cool, you know, but just being, you know, in America playing to American crowds is probably the best for me anyway.
And, you know, like yourself, Bart, you know, Dave's worked with a lot of other great guitar players, of course, Eddie Van Halen, Steve Vai, Jason Becker, Steve Hunter. Were you at all influenced by any of those guys, or?
Oh, I was totally head. I mean, big time. Edward still was probably my biggest influence, and still to this day. I mean, I can't, you know, tell you how much of an impact he had, because I mean, Van Halen won after the first 5 minutes of that record. I was a different person. You know, it really was life changing.
Yeah, and I was curious if you've ever had the opportunity to meet Jason Becker or listen to any of his work.
Oh, Becker's unbelievable. You know, it's extremely tragic, but yeah, I mean, some of that stuff on Little Wayne and that column is just astounding.
I mean, it's kind of like, you know, that was like his big break, if you will, and it kind of that's when he really started to get sick. It's really a shame, you know, what way that happened. But
Becker's a true genius and a true talent. He really is.
I understand he's still making music, you know, using computers and stuff. It's just you know, really an inspiration what he's, you know, but he's even still around, because I know initially when he got sick, they only gave him like 5 years to live, and he's still kicking and screaming, you know, 20 years later. So, you know, I tip my hat to him. And of course, I'd like to ask, since you left Dave's band, you moved up to Nashville, and you said you had a studio. What do you do there these days?
Well, I had a publishing deal for me when I got down here, and I kind of into one of the guys that worked for Gibson Guitar. Gibson Guitar is, or Gibson Brands now, as it's called, it based in Tennessee, in Nashville. And you know, they make all the Les Pauls here, and the Arch Tops in Memphis, and the Acoustics in Montana. But the corporate headquarters is here. So they were looking for a clinician, and I was producing and songwriting, doing some stuff down on Music Road in Nashville. But then I decided, you know, to try the clinic. And I've done clinics before. I'm like, all right. So they hired me full time, and I've been here for 11 years now, doing in-store clinics. Now I work on the really high-tech projects. We have a thing called the Les Paul X, which has onboard effects with Bluetooth controlling pedals, and computer editing software that you can change all the EQs for the pickups and internal sounds on the guitar. It's firmware updatable. So, you know, I have a studio in the house here where I do a lot of R&D for that company on these new technical projects. And also, you know, I do some videos, shoot videos, you know, do various assorted types of marketing things too. And it's been great. I mean, I really love it. I mean, it ties all my passion together of you know, playing guitars and technology and innovation and stuff like that. So it's a great day.
And so I got to ask you, you know, obviously you're still involved in a lot of stuff, you know, with music, but do you miss touring, or do you ever, you know, hope to get a band together or anything like that?
Well, you know, you understand, I mean, as far as what I toured, you know, or played in clubs and toured from the time I was 16 to the time I was, you know, basically 40. And, you know, there's some years I've done 100 dates a year just in clinics. So,
wow.
I mean, I'm still touring, I'm just not in the band.
Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of dig the autonomy of just being able to do my own trip. You know what I'm saying? And I, you know, go where I want and kind of, you know, be a solo act, if you will.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's worked out well for me. As far as touring, the big tours and stuff like that, you know, I think I got to do it. I think I'm great with it. I'm not addicted to it. Some people, you know, feel that kind of reason to go out to perform in front of audiences like that. You know, I'm more of a kind of a solo guy.
Yeah, you know, I think it's great that a guy like you, you know, a lot of musicians are struggling these days to even, you know, even make a buck. And the fact that you're able to kind of do your own thing and make a decent living. I mean, again, that it says something about the quality of a musician you are and the what a hard and dedicated worker you are, and kind of goes back to why I first got the idea to do this project because here in Los Angeles I've worked behind the scenes with a couple of these tribute bands, and I've seen all the hard work that goes into it. And one thing I've come to discover is a lot of people have a misconception, like I was telling you earlier, that these guys are playing in tribute bands because they're failed musicians. They can't hack it at doing their own original thing, and that's really not the case. In a lot of cases, people make the money doing the tribute thing, and that allows them to go out and get their original stuff out, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's kind of how you got your start. And like I said, again, you're one of the pioneers of the tribute scene, and your former band Atomic Punks, they're still out there doing it. And I got to ask, have you been to Atomic Punk's show since you've been out of a band?
Oh, it's been years, probably been 10 years. Since I don't live in LA anymore. I've been in Nashville about 11 years now, and so I haven't seen them since then. But it's a good thing. I mean, the name carried on. The guitar players, the quality of guitar players they've had in that band has been astounding. With Russ and Brian and Al Lance, and so there's always had a lot of talent in that band, so that's another reason I think it does pretty well. I've just been blessed to do what I do. I think one of the things that the only thing I can take away from this or give anybody advice is don't close your options off, because there's always a way to funnel your creativity and passion for music into other arenas. I mean, I'm doing some cues for Duck Dynasty, that television show right now too.
Oh, really?
And I've done some TV stuff in the past. So, it's really just a matter of working for me and being able to do what I love.
And do you have any interest in in producing other acts or other musicians?
I've done that.
Oh.
I've done that. Actually, my wife is a very, very, very talented lead singer, and we got a record out together that I did and produced and wrote and recorded all of it. And her name's Delaney Walsh.
Okay.
You can find her on iTunes or just on the web. And I've done some producing and stuff like that. But I've really been, my whole focus is Gibson and my job at Gibson. That's my bread and butter, and it's what I do full time.
And are you surprised at all to see the Nashville's really turned into I know they call it Music City these days. I mean, for years people thought of it like a place where just for country music, but I know a lot of rock guys are living there. I hear Robert Plant's got a place there, John Crosby's living there, and Tom Kiefer, and a lot of the rock guys. Are you surprised at all at how rock oriented it's turned into?
Not really. I mean, Los Angeles is such it was inevitable as far as I was concerned. I mean, the funny story for me was that I was touring so much that LAX was driving me crazy. I mean, I was living in my car, and I was, living at the airport, and I was, basically, you have to connect to go anywhere because it's really not close to the rest of the country. And I kept flying in here to see some friends of mine down here in Nashville. Like, the airport's easy. You're a while flight. The Midwest and the East Coast, and it's cost of living, nothing down here compared to what it is in Los Angeles. And the weather issue, I miss that out there. It's really the weather tax is why everything's so expensive in Los Angeles. But it's just a really great move for me and a lot of guys because they can still tour, they can still do all the stuff they need to do. It's centrally located. It's a music town. And, there's, tons of cheap real estate. So, the quality of life here is elevated quite a bit. So, I only see that happening more and more in the future because, basically, LA's pricing itself out of a lot of things. I mean, for what I have here, I'd have, it'd be millions of dollars in Los Angeles.
And so I got to ask you, again, I understand Nashville's become what they call Music City, but what's the club scene like there? I mean, there are a lot of a lot of club bands? There's a little bit of everything going on there. Anything like?
Well, I will say this about the club scene here. You will not make a nickel in this town playing the clubs. It is the hardest thing because there's so many musicians here, and most of them play for tips. And that tip system has been here for a very long time. It's kind of like the pay-to-play thing like LA, all those years because there's so many people wanting to do it, supply and demand. But if you're in another part of the industry, you can. I mean, there's not to say that there's not original acts playing in these clubs, and there's not some of these original acts that can, make some money. But I'm saying as a general rule, it's harder to make a living as a club musician here than it would be anywhere.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's part of the reason I was asking. I think part of what killed the LA scene is the fact that even still today they have the pay-to-play thing where you got to guarantee that you get to fill so many seats in the house, so to speak, or get so many people to show up, and if you don't, then you don't get to play the place again. Which I
I haven't done that in since God I don't know in mid to late '80s. And I won't. I mean, I made my mind up I would never do that again, and I never did. And I just played in bands and made money, so I didn't see the point.
Yeah,
I'm not playing in a band and wasn't making money,
Yeah, well, again, you're at a point where you're able to still make a living as a working musician, and you're doing all right. You're not struggling to get by. It seems like you're able to make a decent living, and that must that has something to do with the level of your musicianship. Otherwise, because I mean there's still very talented people out there that are just struggling to make a buck. So again, I gotta tip my hat off to you, Bart, for being out there and still doing what you love.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, at the end of the day, selling records is one of the most difficult things in the world to do, and particularly after what's happening in the last decade. I hope it turns around, but they're going to have to destroy the business model completely to do anything that's going to move it into the future. There's an interesting thing going around on the net now with Kevin Spacey. He's talking about Netflix, and on demand. How it seems to be working, that give people what they want when they want it for a reasonable price. Problem.
Yeah, technology is a great thing, but sad thing is even I hear like about the movie industry. Eventually, they say that they're gonna, everything's gonna go directly to the internet, and there's not gonna be as many movie theaters, which I think is a very, very sad thing.
I haven't been to a theater. That's all.
Yeah.
I mean, because I've got everything in here. I got Netflix. I've got video on demand. I've got the internet. I've got it's just the way it's going to go. It's just going to be home entertainment, and we always want to be a part of that. How we can in our company as well. So we own some other brands right now. Onkyo, which is home theater stuff, and we have the Pro Audio division. So.
And of course, speaking of internet, I know you're on Facebook, but I was curious, do you have another, like, an official website of your own, or is Facebook pretty much what you're on?
Not really. I mean, I have my page on the Gibson site, but that's it. I mean, I don't really promote anything like Gibson, so I'm not really out to try to pimp anything else. Other than, if you want to go buy my Walsh record, you can do that.
Now, do you have an official? Is there an official guitar signature, Bart Walsh guitar, or anything out there on the market?
I've had one in the past. I don't have any right now. I mean, I do design and help with R&D and stuff at Gibson. But as far as putting anything on my name on anything, I haven't done that. But who knows?
Now talking about we were talking about earlier some guys that influence you, like Eddie Van Halen and Steve Vai and that. And of course, they're guys that go out and they get recognized all the time. And yet, like Steve Vai, you played with David Lee Roth. But I was kind of curious. Do you like being able to still go out in public and sometimes get recognized people, but you don't obviously get as recognized often as those guys?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, not really go out, in that sense. Plus, I live in Nashville too now. Kind of outside of the city on a lake out here. I'm a recluse, and I make public performances, but I pretty much just hang in the 90% of the time. And I'm on boat. Totally.
Yeah, and I was curious, working for Gibson and that, and having to deal with musicians, in musician circles, do you ever get people that you deal with that are like, oh, Bart Walsh, hey, you used to play in David Lee Roth's band, or is that something you don't get too often?
Oh, sure. And I try to help guys. Like, we released a Jason Hook model this year. He's an old buddy of mine from L.A.
Okay. Yeah, wow.
And, he's got the Explorer out, Fight for Death Punch. And we kept in touch over the years. So, I try to help anybody I can. Any way I can. I just finished a video, just actually posted today on the Les Paul X with Bumblefoot. From Guns N' Roses, and so I work with artists as well. So that's another part of my job, as well as film and television people.
And what's that like? Like obviously you were a musician performing musician for years yourself, and now you're at the point where you have the opportunity to help other working musicians. That must be a great feeling,
Oh, it is. I tell you, to be honest with you, that's really where I'm going with everything. I just want to kind of pass the torch off, into the the younger generation, younger players and stuff like that, and be able to help them, fulfill their dreams and their passions and everything like that. So that's probably one of the most rewarding parts of my career.
And of course, the last thing I got to ask you, Bart, is there any chance that we'll ever see like a Bart Walsh solo, like instrumental guitar type of album coming out?
Never say never. But I'm a very cause and effect guy. There has to be a reason for me to do something. And I guess that's one thing that's kind of guided my career. Even though I've bumbled into things, but there has to be a tangible thing at the end of it. The passion drives it. The times like why am I doing? I'll create. I always will create for the sake of creating, but to try to drive something on that level, like I said, it has to be some kind of reason for it, and for that reason, you'll see one.
And then I was curious, working for Gibson, if they've ever approached you about filming any of your clinics, like doing a live DVD thing or anything like that at one of your performances.
Well, there's been some of that. One thing we kind of, I've got a bunch of small little clips and things out on YouTube, from various manufacturers I've done things for. But, there's always, I'm really just trying to be more behind the scenes guy these days, actually, and more like an executive producer kind of thing else. But, there's some of that stuff out there for sure.
Okay, and
I'm doing a clinic next week, so I'm always doing something out in the public.
Okay, you said that you got like a publishing deal, so I was curious, do you ever do like any?
No, I don't have one now. I was offered one to come down here.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a publishing deal right now. I'm not working. I own my own publishing deal. I don't have a publishing deal.
Okay, and I guess the last thing I was going to ask you is, would you ever consider like doing any soundtrack type music? I know a lot of guys are into scoring music and TV and film shows and even.
Oh yeah, well, absolutely. Like I said, I'm writing cues for that Dynasty right now.
Oh, okay.
And I've had stuff in film and television in the past, so that I will definitely do because that's a great vehicle.
Yeah, even I hear guys are making a lot of money even doing like music for video games and stuff. That's another big avenue for musicians.
Sure.
Okay, well, Bart, first of all, I want to thank you for taking time to do this. I really appreciate it, and
no problem.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. So, like I said, I will I'll send you the link of my magazine, and you can check that out. And when this goes up on the net in about a month or so, I'll be sure to let you know as soon as I have a date for that. So, thanks again, and maybe we can do this again for the online magazine.
All right. Yep. you.
Take care. Bye bye.